Guys ready? Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming. I call the meeting to order at 6:01 p.m. If you would please take note of the exits, emergency exits. Would everyone please stand and join me for the pledge? Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for sins, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mrs. Giller.
Here.
Mr. Jackson.
Here.
Mrs. Snyder.
Here.
Ms. Gendron. Here. Paradis.
Here.
Mr. Rose.
Here.
Ms. Carey.
Here. Thank you, Ms. Johnson.
You're welcome.
This time, I will turn the floor over to Ms. O'Shea, who just.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. And as I'm starting, I'm going to invite the Lansing Building Leadership Team to come up here, and then we'll introduce you in a moment. As they're doing that, I want to let you know that we received word yesterday that phase 2 of the capital project has been approved by the New York State Education Department. So we're happy to hear that. The next step will be going out to bid. CS Arch will be here at our January 10th meeting to discuss updates and the anticipated timeline for completion of the project. And we're planning for contracts to be on the January 31st agenda. Some more to come with that on January 10th. That was a timely segue, right? I tried to time how long it would take, and wonderful. So I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Cliff Bird, Principal of Abram Lansing, and his team.
Okay, thank you.
Can I have please?
Pardon?
TV timeout.
Okay.
Tell us when it's
Anything, because I don't have anything to do with those things. First, I'm going to apologize. I've decided next year when we pick this date, I'm going to schedule a doctor's appointment 2 days before, just start this kind of thing. I'd like to introduce my team in no particular, well, I have them in alphabetical order, but I don't know how they're sitting. So Tina Keller, Sue Keogh, Melissa Loudon, and Bridget Quinlan, who's right next to me. Brittany Whitford was part of our team and worked with us all summer long, and then took the job of her dreams and left us. So Holly Cesny has now very well filled her shoes. Holly was unable to be here tonight. She's just learning the plan still, so probably just as well. And then we include Carol Blyde, who is our CSD rep. We spent hours with 2 of our parents going over the plan and getting their input, Janae Farmer and Brandon Guy, who volunteered some time to be with us. I also want you to know we also presented our plan to our PTO at the beginning of September to see what they thought. And then just recently, Ms. O'Shea and I have been on road shows presenting parts of my plan to the Rotarians, which was an experience, and also presenting it to the ministerial group of Cohoes, and talking about our demographics and where we can start to work together as a community. So our plan has been making the rounds, and now we're sharing it with you all. So I'm going to turn it over to you. That was only 4 minutes, so we have 6 to go.
It's okay.
Okay, so on the first slide here, we have 2 areas that are covering in our rolling plan. First one is the common board. So each classroom has put up a board in their classroom where it showcases in different areas, the ELA and math standards that are being focused on in each classroom. We also has the second step, the focus of the week, and the BIS skills that we're teaching. The standards are there for multiple reasons. One, to help keep the teacher on track with what they're teaching for that lesson, but also so that the kids can see what they're going to be learning about. And the teachers can bring the lesson back around to it once they finish teaching the lesson. The daily schedules are also listed there so the kids and everyone knows where everybody is at a certain time. So one particular example was if a kid comes in late and they don't know where their class is, they're not in the classroom, anyone can go in and help them find their exactly where they're supposed to be and get them to where they need to be. The other part up here is working with Julie Carroll. She's from, I'm not sure, probably do, but she's from BOCES. She's our instructional coach. And she's been working a lot with each grade level in PLCs. In kindergarten, she kind of is just helping with mapping, doing some ELA lessons and some general support where it's needed, especially with the newer teachers. First and second grade, she's working on unpacking the ELA standards with them to really kind of focus their lessons and teaching the ELA curriculum to the students. And then in third through fifth grade, we have worked on looking at state test data and picking out priority standards where the students were lacking, and then using that information to pinpoint questions and stories into reading to help boost those skills. So they're a little bit more ready for it.
Click.
Continuing high expectations, I'm just going to speak briefly on our wing groups. We had established our wing groups last year and we're continuing them this year. I believe it was very well received. Everyone was happy to get them started. We started right away this year because we used the data from our springtime iReady scoring and our New York State testing data from the previous year and got our groups started right away, starting with phonics and working with our students immediately. During the wind time, all hands are on deck. We're using as many professionals as possible during that time. Every grade level has a 45-minute slot during the day where they are moving in small groups. Most grade levels are at 7 groups, some 8, depending on how many adults we have on hand. We're utilizing our AIS teachers, our reading teachers, classroom teachers, special ed teachers, and then unfortunately, we don't have an permanent sub this year to use. Last year we were able to, so we had even smaller groups last year. We're hoping to get back on track with that. Subbing is its own little ballgame this year. But we're able to service kids from remedial tier 3, tier 2, tier 1, and then also enrichment. So it's a really nice overall program. We meet with the students every single day. That's our wing groups. Thanks.
Click.
Thank you.
All right, so this year, we were able to implement a trauma-informed extension to our team. It's a teaching assistant and a teacher's aide. They're both available full-time throughout the day. And their main goal really is to help students be able to stay in the classroom. So if there are any kind of difficulties or hardships in the classroom that a teacher is dealing with and they need support, they can utilize these two folks. They will come to the classroom and there's a couple of different options that we've put into place. One is perhaps working a bit in the classroom with the student if they have that rapport with that student and having that and helping that child to use strategies maybe that they've learned. Or, and this one I love, giving the teacher an opportunity to swap out. So whomever goes to the classroom will take over and the classroom teacher is allowed to leave the classroom and work with that student who is kind of dysregulated at that time. So that's been really, really helpful. They also have a space, their own space that they're continuing to kind of develop and make kind of cozy and that kind of thing. But it's a place where students can go if in fact they're not able to get themselves back together and kind of reintegrate into whatever lesson is being taught. So they can go downstairs and kind of work on that dysregulation and build some strategies there that they can use moving forward. So the other thing too is that we have been doing quite a bit with Rachel Marshall. She's been doing lots of training and she's an excellent resource in this area. So she has been very present and involved in lots of our meetings with some of our difficult behaviors that we sometimes don't know necessarily what to do with. So she's right there to lend a hand as well. So it's been working out really well. So far, so good. I know that, are we interviewing soon for, I think our teacher aide position is in transition, but, you know, I'm sure we'll fill that soon and, keep moving forward, so. Thanks.
Click.
So last year, we were able to launch an alternative space for students that were having difficulty in the cafeteria for a variety of reasons, whether it was maybe a sensory need or if students were dysregulated for obvious different reasons. So we have 2 library staff members that use that space where we have flexible groups come in with students. Many of them can bring a classmate or a pair with them. So they're able to have that socialization at lunch. It's not a punishment. But it's an alternative to the noisy cafeteria where a lot of kids were really struggling. So we were able to continue that this year, and the library is set up with different tables. They have games, there's activities. A lot of the kids use that to, instead of having outdoor recess, again, if they're having a lot of difficulties maintaining their sleep rate, we have an alternate space for them. It's flexible, so we have kids that, you know, throughout the year periodically, you know, they're making those gains. We could try and place them back into the cafeteria with that support. If not, they have that nice safe space, and it's just a really positive space for them to go. They're not missing out. They still get to, you know, have time with their peers. They're still having fun activities. It's just giving them that environment that they need so they can finish out their day more successful than if they were in the cafeteria. That's been a really great thing that we've been able to continue this year. Well received. And then, yeah, so I can engage it. So we've had different opportunities this year. One of the biggest things that we were able to do was invite families to our hot breakfast. And this rotates every grade level gets a hot breakfast morning, like it's like every 3 to 4 weeks, something like that. So this is the first year we're inviting families in, and the teachers are all down there. So it's a really nice way to get to engage with families, but also have the families engage with each other. And it's been nice because there's been opportunities where you can kind of get parents to organize, you know, play dates and hear exchange numbers and things like that. So that's been really positive, and just opportunities to bring families in for a different reason. They can come have coffee, get scone, we love smoking. So that has been a really big engagement piece for us. And I think for a lot of our families, the idea of coming to school for a parent conference may be more intimidating. So this is a very welcoming first thing. They love to spend time. And it's really nice because a lot of parents are able to just come in for that half hour and then go into work late. So it's been a really, again, something very well received, and the kids are loving it. So we're looking, all the grade levels have gone through at least 1 round with parents. We're going to go back to 1 round with just kids. And then towards the end of the year, we're going to open it up again in the spring to invite the parents back in. So just a different opportunity for parents to come join us in a non-threatening kind of way. But thank you.
Okay, and then last year we started an independence committee, and we're continuing the work that we began last year. This year, we have a 7-person committee, between teachers and some attendance clerk, as well as social worker and school psychologist. But we're each targeting a grade level, and we're looking at the attendance data of chronically absent students, and then working with each teacher to help them determine why that student might be absent and what we can do to help get them to school. On the flip side of that, for all the kids who do show up to school every day, we give perfect attendance awards to every individual student that shows up, and we recognize them at our monthly celebrations. And they each get a little certificate and a picture on parent squares and talk to the parents. We actually never thank them for coming to school. Each class that has the best attendance each month is rewarded, and then the most improved class is also recognized to just encourage them to continue to come to school.
And I also represent Abram Lansing on the career committee for the district. And this year, Abram Lansing will be participating in College Day as well as Career Week, where I think the other elementary schools have been a little bit more involved with that previously. So we have some other activities and things launching right now. And it's just something that we're starting this year and looking to build upon. So that's something that's exciting for us.
Time.
That's it? Excellent.
Any questions?
I do. So I just had a question. So for your high expectations, you said that you're focusing in on priority standards. What are you using as your measurement? Is it iReady or is it test or a combination of both? And is it by grade level or have you established like what that measure is for each and where did you come by it?
We use the state tests from last year to see which, especially in 3 through 5, which standards they were struggling with, and then chose that as our priority standard. And then with the K1 too, especially with second grade, they showed second grade, third grade data so that they would know what skills to kind of help build up to, but also shared it with K1 so that they were aware of what was expected before they got to third grade.
We worked closely with Julie Carroll on that. She was able to help us with digging into the data and really able to identify the different priority standards at each grade level. We found a lot were overlapping, which is, I think is what Bridget is alluding to. You know, a lot of the grade levels are working on the same standards, which makes sense, really.
Just having the consistency with Julie's help, as far as like with our written responses, making sure everyone's using the same language, same expectations. And just during our time during our PLCs and our faculty meetings to share out and be able to show like what a 5th grade all the way down to kindergarten, what we're working on. So everybody has that awareness and that connection.
And utilizing the interreading program, which is really helpful because a lot of teachers, you know, that she's showing us new ways to really dig into the program. Helpful.
The only other question I had is, what tool are you using to measure the positive climate and culture? Like, or do you have, I mean, are you, obviously, we all
Right.
feel when we're having a good school year, when we could feel an impact, like you said, you've had good feedback. But do you have anything that you've talked about as far as like a tool to measure your effectiveness and what you're putting out there as far as the parent engagement pieces, but also, you know, supporting students where they are, and, you know, whether that means having a separate space that just allows them to be more comfortable, or just curious to know if you guys have had those conversations.
The parent climate survey was, I think, the catalyst to a lot of what, you know, we're doing as far as that's concerned. We actually are giving it now. Parents are taking it now as parent conferences just rolled around. And also we're keeping the data for all the parents as they're engaged in the different activities that we're providing. We're keeping all of that data so that we can look at it. It's really the stepping stone for us because we put a lot of things into place this year that we never had before. So now we'll have something that we can then look back on.
I mean, I think
Here to see.
participation's an effective measure,
It's
right?
huge.
Like,
Yeah.
that's really
Yeah.
good indicator.
And I think the student data too
We're
helped us as well.
also
Survey.
with BOCES, the communication team, and our BOCES representative that helps us with all the state stuff and creating our own assessment that we want to get 3 times a year. Tina and I were just talking about that earlier today because they sent us sample questions based on what our concerns have been in the last couple of years that we want to send out through Parent Square and get some more targeted information. We get a lot of information from what we have given out now, and we've reacted to that, but now we need some more specific information. So they're helping us craft questions to do as our own survey. We hope 3 times this year, as soon as we can now, kind of a third of the way through, and then at the end of the year. So
Okay, thank you so much. It's nice to hear bringing parents back into the building.
Yes, it is. It's great.
Definitely great, yeah.
Thank you for the update on the wind blocks too. I'm excited that that started immediately. It was effective last year, right? And you brought it forward. It's impressive how your plan has changed over the years with the extra support and the really, really effective use of the list money that you guys have used. So thank you for all of that. I know it's hard work.
Yes, thank you very much.
Yep.
So you're transitioning. So now we're transitioning to Van Sky. We're going to call Principal Jacqueline Lucero and the members of the Van Sky Grade School DLT up. And little friend with them as well. So I'll turn this over to Jacqueline.
Just sit on my show and tell us.
Our prompts.
Our props.
So good evening. We're happy to be here and to share with you the highlights of our plan. We obviously are not going to read through our plan completely, but just kind of go over what the highlights are. First, my members, we are missing some people, but I have Amanda Dorr, fifth grade teacher, Bonnie Belleville, reading, Amber Della Rocco, second grade teacher, and our parent on our committee is Alyssa Bacon. So we are missing a couple of people who could not be here because of change of date and they had things already planned, so that's okay. Okay, so our plan has three focuses: high expectations, attendance, and then social emotional needs. So we'll start with our high expectations. Our goal is to have 91% of our students make a year's worth of growth in ELA and math on the iReady. Last year, we were very happy with our results on iReady. We had 90% of our students at Advanced Guide make a year's worth of growth in reading on iReady, and we had 88% of the students at Advanced Guide make a year's worth of growth on the math portion. So together, that's 89%. So and we know it's only 2%, which is probably like 2 kids, but we thought we did pretty good last year. So we don't want to, we're hoping to maintain, but also grow a little bit as well. So that is our focus. And then we were going to talk about iReady, is to recognize classrooms with the highest percent of students with 70% passing lessons on iReady and math. And that is a change from last year. And Bonnie will talk about why we changed.
So last year we were looking at the amount of time that they were on the program and their passing lessons. And we noticed after looking at both of those, they were on, but they weren't always being successful or passing the lessons. So we decided to look specifically at the 70% of passing lessons, partially because of what we saw. And then also based on the program, the most benefits is in that personalized instruction if they're at 70% passing or higher. So we did change to looking just at the passing. And we have found that students are more focused on that and not so much the time. And then like some of our youngest kids would shut the Chromebooks, not log off, so it's running their time. So it looks like they're on, but you can tell based on the number of lessons completed and passed that they weren't. And then at the end of every month, I look at the data K-5, and we recognize the classrooms with the highest percent of 70% passing. If they have it in just one of the areas, they get a reward, and then if they have it in both, they get 2 separate rewards. So we have some.
So last month we had, for reading, it was our second grade, had 100% of the students had 70% passing of their things. And then for math, this is the second month in a row where math, we had multiple grades that had 100% of their students with 70% passing rate. We had our first grade, second grade, third grade, and fourth grade, all with at 100% at 70% passing. So those classrooms I announced it over the PA system. We announced it throughout the month. What class is going to have the best? I hope we're still staying focused. And then we announce it, and then the teachers then give the students a separation for their success. The next thing is, and April Lansing had mentioned this as well, the priority standards to develop curriculum pacing for the into reading modules. And that's really the teachers working with Julie Carroll from BOCES and also continuing the work in their PLCs. And Ms. Doran and Ms. Rock are going to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so our standards were targeted by looking at the heat map data, and actually kind of worked out because second, third, fourth, and fifth grade kind of came together for their PLC to just identify what those standards were and what that standard looks like at the second grade level and how it progresses over time, where it eventually, becomes more involved and the expectations get a little higher. But not even just that, just looking at the interreading curriculum and seeing which text selections kind of lend themselves the most towards those standards. So we're able to move through and prioritize based off of some of Julie's recommendations.
I was just going to say, in addition to that, the first couple of PLC meetings we had, Julie attended. So that was really helpful because not only did she walk us through the heat map and what she was able to discern from that, we saw that there were overlaps in, as our colleagues from April Lansing said, there were overlaps in the skills that the kids were lacking in. So third and fifth grade, for example, had a lacking skill, let's say, in main idea and theme. And then fourth and third had an overlapping area in vocabulary. So it was kind of interesting to think about why might that be. looking at the cohort of kids, or maybe, like Amber said, the entry rating program, where does that skill pop up? So we had some really interesting conversations around that. And then in turn, we're able to create 2-point written responses that we added into our assessments for the classroom to kind of see where each kid was at. And we noticed as we were going through it that there were, again, similarities in the needs of what we needed to instruct them on to move them forward. So I think we got some very valuable information so far, and I'm hoping to continue that work and see where it brings us.
And then just ongoing, something just to mention that we are continuing, as we have for the past few years, that all students create goals. So they create a goal at the beginning of the year. When they complete it, they bring it down to me. We have a new wall, and we're going to talk a little bit more about the Tiger Way and one of our other expectations. But that is, we're using the Tiger Way as our wall focus for when you complete your goal. So trying to tie things together. So we are continuing with creating the goals. And once they complete a goal, we take a picture. I'm sure you've seen it on Parent Square. And then they set a new goal. So they're constantly making goals for themselves once they accomplish one. So our next area is positive school climate and culture, our social emotional piece. So here, one of the new things that we're doing is we talked about new students, and when students come to our building, with Van Skyke only having one class, our kids tend to be very close to each other and know each other very well. And then you get new students who come in and they gotta try to fit with the class. So we talked about, that can cause some anxiety for the new students. So on top of Bonnie's going to be taking them to look academically at how they're doing when they first come to us. We also, students are in each classroom, we have a welcome committee member. So once the teachers choose one student in their classroom, then the students wear this lanyard. And so that student is the new student's buddy. So the day they start at Van Skyke, that they'll have a buddy that will help them in their classroom, show, if they have to go to the nurse's office, they'll sit with them at the lunchroom. They'll make sure they're walking to specials with them and making sure they're included in recess and things like that, just so they have someone there and they're not alone when they first start with us. So we started that this year.
And I just want to say, I did get to experience this firsthand, because I think I'm one of the classes that did get a new student. And in particular, she was very nervous about the girl that came into the classroom, was very nervous that we were already in session for 4 weeks of school, and she didn't know the groups. And so their welcome committee member, met her right at the door and said, "Don't worry about a thing. I'm going to teach you everything you need to know about being in this 5th grade classroom." So already from the moment she walked in the door, she was like, "Oh, okay, now I can ask her." And they sat next to each other. So that was helpful, because then she could and I said to them, all day long, whatever you need, you could just ask. And so she did ask questions like, "Why do we do this?" or "What do we do that?" What comes next? And I think it just really hit on that, anxiety of coming into a new classroom. And you could see her relaxation, like instant, like she was like, "Oh, okay, I have a person," right? So I think so far so good with it, and we're gonna, continue it, and I think it's a good implementation, so.
The next two items that we're going to talk about is DESA and the Compassion Project. And these were really based on some of the things that we're doing with those two things were based on the student survey. We looked at our student survey, and some of the results were questions where students respect one another. 27% of our students disagreed. Students like one another, 27% disagreed. So we needed to say, okay, why are our students saying, what can we do? Because that's almost a third of the class, right, that took the survey. So here comes Compassion Project and DESA. We worked with Rachel on implementing the DESA, which is a screener, a social emotional screener for our students. Mrs. Dorr, it's the 5th grade that's doing it. So she completed questionnaire on each of her students. From that, certain students were flagged. So out of our classroom, we had 5 students who came out red, 11 were typical, and 3 had strengths. So based on that, we have our social worker and our school psychologist who are pulling those 5 students. And then there's 2 that were kind of on the hub there. So they'll bring those in for certain areas. And they're doing small groups based on where they came out weak on that DESA questionnaire. And then 5th grade is also doing the Compassion Project.
So I just wanted to speak about the student survey for a moment. The students in the elementary school that take the survey are 4th and 5th grade students. So currently the 5th graders are the only students left in our building that actually took that survey. So the focus we felt was there because they're the students that are in front of us. The other students are now at the middle school. So the Compassion Project is a social emotional project that is free to us from a company named Everfi. And they have tons of free programming for schools. The Compassion Project is a 3-module project. The first module is on compassion and empathy. The second is on mistakes and self-care. And the third is on emotions and mindfulness. So the students go through this self-paced kind of learning where they're watching scenarios of students, cartoon characters, because their age, dealing with these types of issues. And it leads them through a series of what would you do in this situation. And at the end of each module, there's an actual test about what they learned, and you get like immediate results. And so if it comes back and they got like a 60 on the test, it's a growth mindset model, so they can retake the test and look at the questions they got wrong, rewatch the video and look for whatever the correct response was. In addition to the Compassion Project, we decided also to try to help the students to better understand one another. On Mondays, we've been doing Mix It Up Lunch, having them sit with a different classmate each Monday and kind of talk to them. This last week we did Would You Rather. So they would sit with a person that they maybe never sat with before. And they had this little thing in front of them that said, you know, like, would you rather have chocolate milk or white milk? And then the person would say chocolate milk. How about you, white milk? So they're kind of getting to know each other because even though they're in the same classroom, they really don't know deeply about one another. And so we thought that some of the questions were coming out because they really were only getting to know their poor little 3 or 4 friends. And so hopefully with the integration of the Compassion Project, the Mix It Up Lunch, second step, we're still obviously doing, we have Apple a Day coming in, the DESA groups. We're hoping that that will really hit all of the little indicators there. So we'll see a bump hopefully in those results at the end of the year.
And just one other thing that we are continuing is Handle with Care. So every parent gets one of these at the beginning of the school year. And that's a little form that says to the parents, we know that things happen at home and you don't have to tell us anything about it, but we know we're going to get your child now and that they are affected by it. Just send this to us and we'll know that that child might need a little extra for the day. And you can just even text it to us. You can send it to us on Parent Square, Handle with Care. And parents do use this and they do message us. So we are continuing that. And then the Tiger Way, and I know I want to keep on time here. The Tiger Way from our high school friends. So we're implementing that as well at Van Skyke. Our PTO this year for the Christmas gifts are giving all of our children are going to get a beanie hat for the winter. It says the Tiger Way. We're going to get together and have a nice big picture of that. It was on the goal setting. It's on the wall. And I'm also reading for each of the principles of the Tiger Way. I'm reading a book that goes along with it, that goes along with that principle. And in September, we showed the high school video of the Tiger Way. And our goal is that in June, that Van Skyke kids will make a Tiger Way video to go along with it. And then that video will be shown in September. And then we'll just keep going like that. So that's our social emotional. And then our attendance, there isn't a whole lot different than we have been doing in the past. We do think that we didn't need to add very much because we do think that we're doing a pretty good job attendance wise. Our goal again is 95%. Classroom that has the best attendance gets paused in the classroom for the month. We make it a big competition at Van Skyke. In November, grade 5 had the best attendance, 98% attendance in her class. For the month of November, October, it was kindergarten with 97%. And in that month, October, we had 7 of our 11 classrooms that were at 95 or more attendance for the month of November. So we are trying to really hammer it away. I think sometimes maybe some parents, Alyssa, they're like, okay, or be a hero. So this is the award. Every child, 95% gets this at the end of each month. Like April Lansing was mentioned, they do.
Takes a photograph of the whole class, and that is very motivating.
And then from the kids that have 95%, so of that group, we choose one student. We do a lottery. One student gets a special prize. And that's been motivating because they get things. This month it was a $5 gift card to the Little Shoppers. Last month it was McDonald's lunch, $1.50 to the school store. Next month it's going to be no homework coupon. So, you know, we're trying to, so that everyone gets their certificate, but then to entice a member even more, give a little prize as well. So I know I want our time. And we're really grateful again for that. Selectman B is on our committee this year, and PTO is just doing a fantastic job down at Van Skyke. Really has invigorated in the past couple of years, and we're having breakfast with the Grinch on Sunday. So we're very excited about it.
Well, thank you so much. Any questions?
Just want to think you guys are, you know, really creative with some of the things that you're doing. And I think that being a smaller school, you know, you don't always think about the fact that those kids are isolated in traveling with each other. And sometimes they do only know the 3 friends that they make in kindergarten, and they just keep traveling in the same group. And so I think it's creative what you're doing, and hopefully you see some results with it. I love the jumping on with the high school's Tiger Way, and you know, it's good branding and good training for kids to, you know, start at elementary and move forward.
Welcome committee is amazing. Really, really great idea. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. And at this time, I'm going to call up Mr. Perry and the Harmony Health Building Leadership Team. Mr. Perry.
Now we have 4 minutes. Thank you.
No.
Oh, we were keeping track. We were keeping track.
This is where I'll start the timer, please.
18% of our group is absent today, just like our school. So we have Sarah Atkins here, who's a fourth grade teacher. Meredith Siebel, 2nd grade. Jenna Howe, 2nd grade. Chris Quineri, reading specialist. And Stacy Bold, our CSCA rep, and do it all. Right, Stacy? Anything we need, she does it. So one of the things I wanted to just quick mention is that in our initial slide, we're looking for 5% growth in our writing, both in reading and math. We're underwhelmed with our scores. We're 76% proficient in reading and 79 in math. I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that upstairs, meaning upstairs kindergarten versus 2nd grade, had to beg, borrow, and steal Chromebooks, you know, and finally with PJ and Mr. Martinelli's help, we did some strategic buying, and we ended up the year 1-to-1 with Chromebooks. So every single group upstairs has their own carts, and everybody has Chromebooks. We're looking for just that alone, not to mention more time. We think that 5% is more than attainable, along with the programs that we're going to be talking to you about. So that.
So one of the ways that we're able to hold all of our students to those high expectations is to first of all know where they're at, and then to provide them with the adequate instruction that's meeting them at their level and that's differentiated. It'd be really surprising, I imagine, if some of you came in and saw like the range within a year group of from the very lowest students, say if you're just looking at reading, to the very highest and everything in between. That's in all of our schools, I'm sure. And then we have the added, the addition of ELL students spread throughout that as well. So in order to really meet our students where they are, to hold them to those high standards of growth, one of the things that we're doing is we're doing these block scheduling. And for example, in 4th grade, we have differentiated all the 4th grade students, and we've got them in groups where we have we have a Foundations 2 group, we have a Foundations 3 group, we have a rewards group, we have an extension high achieving group that focuses on writing and responses to text. But so we're basically trying to find ways to meet them right where they are and to accelerate that growth by having them in those light groups for part of the day. A lot of the day they spend in whole class instruction where it's all mixed together. This allows us to really target that, not just in tier 2 and tier 3 in AIS, but across the grade level. Another thing that we're doing is with Foundations Integrity. We talked about this last year. Really, we started off the year with AIS pushing in both the kindergarten and 1st grade, making sure that both of those year groups were up and running with fidelity, holding true to the program. The gains that we're seeing with both of those, we spoke to them last year, but they're just
Like I can give you an example that where we used to have groups of students that didn't have that phonological awareness. And certainly not that phonemic awareness at that phoneme level, like the individual sound level. We used to have groups of first graders that we would have to pull for tier 2 and tier 3 AIS groups, and even sometimes into second grade. With the addition of Heggerty and in doing foundations with Fidelity, we don't have the need for those groups anymore. So we are dealing at a tier 1 level with some of the things that we were addressing at a tier 2 and tier 3. And so that to us is really valuable. We want to try to continue that however we can.
So in regards to iReady, we're using it K through 5, and it's individualized for each of the students. So it's hitting them right where they're at. They do a diagnostic at the beginning of the year, and then their lessons are going to be all set based on where they scored on that diagnostic. So we are taking that data, we're looking it over regularly. It will flag us if they're missing lessons, and we pull small groups and reteach those parts that they might be missing. So we're discussing that with our BOCES coach and also in like our PLC meetings and team meetings. And we're focusing on setting student goals and time management. So they're not just sitting on the Chromebook waiting until it says, are you there, and clicking, but really encouraging them to try their best, do, work through it, have them set a goal. And some of the ways that we've been doing that in the upper elementary is 4th grade specifically is doing like an iReady challenge. And there's 3 4th grades. And when we have a poster and you get to color in a square on the poster, when you pass with an 80% on one of your lessons, and whoever's class fills it in first gets the iReady trophy for that month. And the kids are so into it, super excited about it, very competitive, and they get so excited when they're passing their lessons, not just sitting there on it because we have a time limit, but because they're excited that they're learning something. And you're seeing them make those connections back into the classroom too, in whole group. Oh, I did that on iReady. I learned about this already. I know where to go.
We see that, also, especially in the we're 2nd grade, but we see it in 2nd grade as well, where I have a couple kids actually who come up to me and go, I did not pass my last comprehension lesson, and you need to assign me another comprehension lesson so that I can work on this. And I think it's main idea. Like, okay, you got it all set then, don't you? You know what I mean? Like, I did not get my gold star or my thing, and I need to, so they're even in 2nd grade, they're kind of picking, noticing it. And, because we did talk about time, we talked about like our first one was, let's see, in a week, let's get to be 45 minutes, let's whatever. And now I'm saying, okay, that's great. We got to 45 minutes. Now let's make sure you're passing all your lessons, you're using quality time, making sure everything. So now they're like picking out all these little things. So they get into like the program itself gives them little incentives throughout the way too. So they're picking that out.
And we're using all of that data from their diagnostic and their progress data in our meetings with Cabinet, IST, looking at their individualized plans when we're pulling for those things. We also looked at heat maps, where we just took New York State assessment data and identified those priority standards. What were our students consistently missing? And we found that the data was very consistent among grades, similar standards, 3, 4, 5. And so we took time to sit down, look at all those standards, and then backtrack really all the way to K through 5, look at those standards. Because, main idea is a standard that, we're struggling with, but that's something we can start introducing. And they're seeing that in K1 too, even though they're not testing on it. So building wide, we've looked at those standards, made sure that everyone knows that those are the priority standards. Those are the ones that our students are consistently struggling with. And then we're looking at ways to implement them more frequently. So we're doing a lot of direct instruction, but then more frequently including those questions in assessments, adding on a question at the end specifically related to those things, so that we can address those standards more consistently throughout the year.
And just to add on to the heat maps, I had meetings with each grade level, went over the heat map, the results here only for 3rd, 4th, and 5th. However, it applied across the building, and it was really fantastic discussions with kindergarten, 1st and 2nd grade, with how they can apply it in kindergarten, and even just the academic vocabulary too. It was really great discussion. So we're looking forward to successes with that. The next piece is our climate culture. One of the gauges that I've got personally is that
tomorrow I'll finish up all my round one observations, and about 99.9% of my observations, I noted that the teachers just seemed very, very happy in presenting. The kids were pleased. I think that says a lot to where we are. There's a lot going on. We are, but they're overcoming it. They're really, really doing a fantastic job coping with the things and realizing they got to take care of themselves and take care of their kids and smiling. So looks to my group. And also I forgot to mention that Kate Lambiga is 1-6 today, our first grade teacher.
Okay.
Jenna?
So one of the things that we use is second step to help maintain a positive school climate culture. We, at the beginning of every week, the whole building is working on the same skill from second step. And we teach it at the beginning of the week, and then we enforce it through the rest of the week. Everyone is doing the same. So it's pretty much a constant throughout the building. If we're working on your emotions, everyone's going to be working on emotions all week. And we actually use our SEL coach frequently, Amy McGuire. She is amazing. She will come into the classroom and she will teach about bullying. She'll teach about just safety, about working well with others. She frequently shares resources with us for the whole building. It can be read alouds, websites, anything that we can use to help support us with teaching the second step program. And we also tie in the 3 Bs with the second step program, making sure it's all consistent throughout the building.
Okay, building faculty and community, we have started on our faculty meetings doing a little bit of reading right at the beginning. We started out with some Marshall memos. They're really just short little reads, and they can connect to a lot of different topics. We did one on trauma sensitive at the beginning of the year, and then we have now moved on to a book called The 4 Agreements. We read this book for a long time ago, but we're wanting to revisit it again. Just to build some effective communication. It really does. It really is like a very practical, some of the advice that comes through there and with the 4 agreements. So we're working on that in our staff meetings. And just a way to help support each other and to kind of talk about, what things kind of get you down and how can we kind of work through that and what can we do to kind of, just communicate better. I guess another way. What's already? Staff communication.
Yep. You next. You're next. All right. So faculty and staff communication. So one of the things we want to make sure is that the staff is able to communicate any concerns, any things that they're happy about in the building. So there is a suggestion box. Actually, technically there's 2. There's a physical one that's in the office, and then there's also an online one. They're anonymous, as long as you want them to be. And you can just share out any ideas, any suggestions, any concerns you have for anything that you find in the building. And we also have focus meetings for different things throughout the year, anything that Mark wants to check with us, just to make sure everyone has a say. Things like Halloween, when we wanted to try to plan Halloween, how it would work for all of our students, especially since we have all the L's in the building, make sure everyone feels included, but not excluded. So we have all those meetings throughout the year for different events.
So as you can see, all the faces up there, we've decided to start our PBIS assemblies again. Okay. Every month, beginning of the month, the teacher picked 2 student names. And at the end of the month, we have a celebration. And to make it more special, we invite the parents, family members that want to come. And it's a really nice feeling. They're called, they get their certificate.
We involve them.
Yeah.
They have to talk back to the kids. Contest of who could be clearer and louder. So kids always win.
They'll always win. And then afterwards, they take their pictures with their parents if they choose to have their picture taken. Also, during the assembly, we have a golden trash can award now that we've started. And in the lunchroom, the aides can fill out a green sheet if they do something, if their class does something nice, out of extraordinary. For example, my class
last week. Mr. Ray, our custodian, was eating lunch in the cafeteria at the table. And the little girl comes up to me, she goes, he looks lonely. And she said, should we go over and eat with him? I said, well, see if it's okay to eat with him. So they had 3 girls go over and ask, and he said, sure. So they went over and sat with him and took a picture, and it was very, very touching. So I wrote them a green sheet for going above and beyond and being so caring. So yeah, we present that every month to the class with the most green sheets as well.
And then attendance, we look at attendance, and we decided to reward the grade level with the best attendance. Last month, for example, was second grade with 95%. Their attendance was, so just like Van Skyke, well, not like Van Skyke, because nobody can compare it to Van Skyke's Tiger, because theirs has.
But we do have a tiger project.
So picture a naked tiger like that with rosy spit on it, and that's what they get. So
Or the preschoolers who love it.
Preschoolers
They
that
really
fall.
love it.
So it's
They're well
amazing what those little things do to motivate. The room goes wild when we announce the winners of that. So it's those little things.
The book club, we actually started last year working on a book club. We choose a book. It's actually, we're given a bunch of choices and then everyone decides what seems to be the best option for a book. We choose dates that we're going to meet, discuss the book, and it's just a way to encourage community, encourage participation throughout the building. And actually the latest book, The Midwife of Auschwitz, is a very strong, very powerful book. I definitely recommend it. So.
Next, we're going to talk about a little bit about future ready knowledge and skills. It's kind of culture as well. A bunch of the things that we've been doing are things that we've done before, but we're also introducing a lot of new things, a little bit more spice, a little bit more rigor, if you will. For example, our RPI students down in the bottom, we had our RPI students came in, RPI ambassadors came in and presented. It was energy, correct? For 4th graders and 5th graders. They loved it. The kids were engaged. We had it all in the comments. It was just phenomenal. The participation we had on that. We also have our PBS kickoff walk. We have that every year. This year we came back full force. Everything were really full force, and the families are very, very thankful for that. Book fairs, holiday shop next week. Student leadership team, SLT is still doing a lot. They are still bringing, still collecting food, still doing all those things, looking for new things too. Let's see what else we have. Cheer for Children this week. We're still involved in the Boulder Plunge. We're still involved in the Wizards game. There's a lot of different things. Is there anything else?
Well, I think you had it's not on here, but we had the veterans come in for Veterans Day. That was a really great turnout, and the people really loved that. They had breakfast with the kids. That was awesome.
Yeah. I'm not crying. I'm telling you, it was really, really good.
It was really, really touching, really good.
Yeah, they could not have been more thankful to bring the veterans in. They got their pictures taken, Stacey took the pictures.
Yeah.
But we recognized them. They sat with they gave them breakfast, and then the students sat with their veteran, and then went up and I made them announce. Half of them could announce. Yeah, they were okay.
Some of them got a little.
Some of them grabbed that mic and yelled right into it, but the veterans were so happy. They stayed afterwards and thanked us.
Yep, and they had breakfast with them beforehand and everything, so it was really a really nice event.
This is new to me. So Amy McGuire last year came to me and said, I heard you're the big idea.
Welcome to our days.
Oh, we didn't press it. That's okay. That's okay.
Technical difficulty.
That's okay. It'll be done.
Keep going.
Now the spotlight's pressed on you. Nobody's distracted by that.
Go ahead.
So we came up with a career day last year where all the students wrote what they wanted to be. We set it up in the library. We had every cell covered with different careers that are from the trade. And each class came in to look at all the different careers that a child wanted to do, and it was a lot of fun. So this year, we're taking it up a little, one step higher. We're gonna have a college day where we have former Harmony Hill students come in and talk about their college years, what they're doing now for a job, say. And then we're also gonna have a career trade show. So, and they set up in the cafeteria. We're gonna invite people from different
trades.
trades,
Yep.
careers, and they're gonna set up and have fun with the kids and up to them and answer questions.
And then career week, that was all kicked off. We had junior achievement of the day. Everybody got, we had two opportunities. We could either do it the second week of September or in March. So I had a focus meeting and we all said, let's go for it. And so we did it. It was a great stepping point because now we can say, okay, look at all these jobs we talked about. Now we can talk about those jobs throughout the year. So it really.
Yeah, and Jay and a day was great. I was just telling Jacqueline, her husband was in my room for doing a Jay and a day. It was so much fun. The kids really loved it. They brought the trucks, they came out, so that's another thing. It was really, really great. Safety committee. We have monthly meetings. It's sort of like a needs, for the building, we put out running minutes. So anybody can kind of join into those minutes. Everybody gets the email about that. And we just really work on setting up protocols and maybe even maintaining protocols. Like, the door might be left open too long. Let's make sure we shut that door. Make sure, all those kind of little things that come up. We talk about all of that, we were talking a little bit about the food safety as well, allergies, things like that. So all those things that come up is what we take care of during safety committee meetings. And like I said, we have running minutes and usually anybody can chime in on those minutes once they see them. So we go over that. Anything else, Mark, you want to add to that? Am I good?
I think the other one we kind of hit too.
Attendance, we hit that a little bit already, the attendance. I just wanted to add a little bit. I did add to the attendance that yes, we are, doing the Tiger Club for the month and all of that, but we also really look at attendance a lot when we are doing our CSC meetings and our IST meetings. We really go over that data. And sometimes we even do sort of little wrap around where, like, I remember once last year, all three teachers that had this family got on the phone with the mother all together. And was like, we really want them here. We really need them here. And it was better. The attendance got a lot better after that. So we were like, what can we do to help you? How can we help you? Which one is giving you the hard time in the morning? Let me see, can we talk to that one? Which one's the one holding you up? So, we really got in, we really try to, when we see that attendance pattern, really kind of, wrap around and try to help the family and see what we can do to fix that. Because if they're not here, we can't, that's the big one. That's the big one. So we really try to get to, and that's a lot of our discussions at ISC.
And cabinet.
Yeah.
So snapshot of Harmony Hill.
Well, thank you. Are there any questions, comments?
I mean, perfect measure of growth for a program is having to change the program because it's working so good that you don't need it anymore. So kudos to you for, realizing that you have to just move forward now and just keep processing.
Right.
I like the idea that you guys have some faculty stuff in your SEL. I would, similar to Lansing's, like having some sort of a screening tool or like how you're going to measure it. You do seem to be putting a lot of work into that positive climate and culture with bringing people in and having PBIS events and, Stacy in her pictures, we see them all the time and, doing all those things and just curious to know, how we measure that at the end to see where our impact lies. So.
Well, one measurement was Saturday, when we had our breakfast and it was absolutely packed. It was absolutely mobbed.
And I know we did talk about, in our building, kind of past that during parent teacher conferences as well, because I mean, we had a little meeting with some of the newer staff about how to go about parent teacher conferences. And I know it's one of the things I usually ask too. Well, yeah, okay, we have academics all set. Now, how do they really feel? How do they like coming to school? Are they happy coming to school? I mean, it's one of my biggest concerns, and I know that you ask that usually too in your meetings all the time. So we do, you do too. So we do try to prioritize that when we do parent teacher conferences as well. Like, how do they like it? Are they, are they feeling good at school and all of that? So.
So if I could also mention, so all three elementary buildings are piloting DEXA in fifth grade, going into, and sixth grade as well, and Rachel has. So that is consistent, and I know that everyone also were really talking about the comments on the survey as we move forward, and really trying to get increased participation. And you were going to say?
I was. It's okay, that's kidding. Really strong theme of building-wide collaboration. That's great to hear, not just at grade level, but throughout the whole building. It's awesome. The burning question though at the moment is, Mrs. Gold, is there actually a golden retriever?
Yes. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Go ahead. PJ, go ahead.
It's a little one, but it's the actual trash can. He's holding it.
Yeah, but on a pedestal.
It's on a little pedestal and has a little.
Oh, I see it, I see it, I
It
see
has
it.
like a trophy. It has like a. Yep.
That's from.
It makes it for our naked tiger.
Next year, maybe we should have golden BLT sandwich trophy in there.
Oh, there we go. That's a good one. I like that. Good idea.
So before we transition to Stacy Mackey, I just want to take a moment to thank you all, principals and building leadership teams, for your leadership. It is clearly evident. You use data, you're very reflective, and you're continuously improving programs and services for our students. So thank you so much.
Thank you all.
All right, Stacy, do you want to sit up there?
In the
Um, So we're going to transition to Stacy. This is your moment. Some of you, those of you who can, if you need to leave, we understand.
Happy holidays.
Yes, yes. And then after Stacy, I just going to fill you in on a few other things, and then we'll go with the agenda. So Stacy Mackey.
I'm just going to start with some general updates. Okay. So our next meeting on the agenda will have action because the minimum wage will increase for the beginning of the year. So all of our part-time employees will see that action, and it'll be retro to the beginning of the year. I just wanted to give the heads up about that. We're also working with CSR and German and we'll be piggybacking on several contracts, mostly for the athletic facility. So the lighting, the bleachers, the scoreboard, and the actual, they call it the carpet, but it's the synthetic turf. So we'll be piggybacking on 2 Sourcewell contracts, 1 Keystone contract, and a TIPS contract. So we've already shared the contracts with the attorneys. That's between, say, Sourcewell and whatever vendor. And then we'll develop our own contract with the vendor, all through Gerwin and Falazzo. We've been working with Patrick Fitzgerald over at Gerwin. So that's in the works. You'll also see language for piggybacking in January, and then you'll see those contracts in January. So just a heads up that we're moving in that direction, and you're going to start to see some activity there. We also had our first borrowing of the contract for the phase 2. So it was 3.6 million. So that was due today. We had 5 bidders. The lowest came in at 3.78, which is well below the average. So that was really good news for us. And we had a lot bid on it. We had 5 responders. So Rick Tim's group was really thrilled with that. So we'll be looking to have that money come in at the end of this month. So that's good news. And that's it for the general stuff.
Ended with that good news.
I'd love to share good news. It's not all the time I get to do that.
Started with that, so I'm a little concerned about what.
No, it's all good.
You've been telling us for months. Rates are not great.
So we're going to talk about this document, and anybody that would like a copy for their leisure is available here. It's a draft. It's a long-range financial plan. Last year, I couldn't come up with this plan, and we had to put a pin in it and talk about it later in June. So I was actually able to come up with a plan. So that's all good news. Right there, Ms. Aaron. So I always do last year because that's the last full year that we had and its actual results. So that's labeled 2023. And then its projections for the current fiscal year. So 24, 25, 26, and 27. So the green line is revenues. The red line is subtotal for expenses, fund balance. It's all assumptions except for 2023. And then we use this plan to talk about our budget goals. So that's the highlighted areas in the bottom in yellow. I will just say that last year we talked about MTSS as a area that we identified as a need for this budget year as we develop this budget. So it's just a reminder.
Great.
So 2024 through 2027, I'm assuming a break-even result. The assumptions are in the red on the right-hand side. So important thing for revenue is a 2% increase in taxes, so not to exceed 2%, which is reasonable. And then I assumed flat for everything else. So I don't expect that we're going to see any growth at all in state aid. Pilots really is the area that we don't know about, but the assumption is flat, federal aid, state aid, et cetera. For expenses, there are some assumptions that are a little bit low, like benefits. Benefits are trending high right now, so that might be too conservative of a number, but we'll have to keep an eye on that. We do have some reserves there. Transportation, I assumed 4% for the contract, which I do think is reasonable, and I assumed 3% for salaries. We do have some contracts that'll be ending in 2027, and I do expect that we'll have some retirements. We do have a list from HR of folks who are eligible, so I do expect that we'll have some movement in retirements, and then we call it breakage when you have folks who are on the top scale replaced by folks that are starting off in the beginning of the pay scale. Also, I assumed in the other categories, so that's just think about that as things. So it's like materials and supplies. So I did make some reductions in year 26 and 27 in order to break even. So just be mindful of that. Nothing astronomical or unreasonable. But just be mindful of those assumptions. So I did say that we would not use any debt service, and I did assume that we would not have any material changes in our debt service, that's all part of the financial planning package. We try to keep that stable so that it doesn't impact our tax levy. So we'll work with Rick Thames as we're borrowing to make sure that that happens. I did assume that we would fund some reserves in the 2024 school year, and we talked about that last time we met, and actually you're approving the plan tonight. So we talked about that, the debt service, depending on how the bidding environment goes, either the capital reserve or the debt service reserve is our top priority, and then we know that we'll have the tax certiorari and then TRS are our three priorities as far as funding reserves. So I did assume that we would fund something at the end of this fiscal year. And then I assumed we wouldn't fund at all, assuming that we break even for the following 3 years. Do you have any questions on any of that? No, okay. For as far as budget goals, so we are always looking to make sure that we're as stable as possible with our tax base. And I assume that we want to stay within the tax cap and we do not want to exceed the tax cap. Yes. We always want to try to limit our legacy costs any way we can. So that'll be as we talk about what our needs are. We're being mindful of anything that's a long-term expense. We want to make sure that it's valuable. We're looking at the return on investments and making sure that's something that we can be able to fund going forward if it's a continuing expense and not a one-time expense. No planned use for fund balance as far as balancing the budget, and no planned use for reserves in order to balance the budget. And that is it as far as this goes.
So with our allowable 4% for, fund balance, right? Are we still working to get that back to where it needs to be, or?
Hasn't it been?
I'm assuming it's gonna stay high. I'm hoping that they take some action to raise that because 4% is,
No, I know that we've talked about that. and-
yeah. So I could, on paper, plan to move reserves in year 25 to get it to 4%, if you would like for me to do that on paper.
I mean, I'm not necessarily asking you to do that. I'm just asking like if, you know, it's definitely something that's come up in our audit committee meetings. And
Yep.
it's something that we need to talk about, you know, as far as long range plans. I know it's not like, you know, a high item that really is something that is a focus area, but, you know, you constantly are seeing this over the allowable.
Yep.
And I'm just curious to know if we have had, I know that we're trying to a point where small city school districts are, you know, able to carry a little bit more.
Yeah.
But it's, we're just not there yet.
So,
It seems like everybody's feeling uncomfortable right now. I don't know, like, no.
It's not, in my opinion, this is not the worst audit hit we could take.
No, it's not, but, you know, at the same time,
In anticipation of potential legislation.
For the 10%, so I
Yeah.
think we need to continue to follow that, because if that is the case and it's
we will need to do
raised,
something, yeah.
then we would be
Underfunded.
Right, right. And
So we have no idea the if and the when, but that.
we've been talking about it for years, right? 4% is, it's unreasonable, honestly. But on paper, we're saying that we would stay at 8%. I mean, it's a
I mean,
good point.
Feeling optimistic that our legislators are gonna put us in a better position.
I would hope so. But we've been talking about it for a long time.
so we're going to be optimistic, right?
We're gonna be optimistic, Ms. Skiller.
Right.
And the 986,930 increase in interest in the debt service is borrowing?
That's planned for this year, yep. And so we have our first payment in June of this year, yep. That's what we budgeted.
Okay. And not,
I don't know the actual number yet.
not significant in the coming years.
In the coming years, it would be premium, the premium would be higher and the interest would be lower. But that's what we budgeted for this year. I don't have the actual results yet, but that's what we budgeted, yeah.
Okay.
So in the final version of the report, I would hide the assumption. I would remove draft. Is there anything else that you would like me to add under budget goals?
I mean, what else are we needing to focus on as far as our return on investments? I mean, I know that we're going into the budget process, but what grants are we supporting right now that are gonna be falling off that we need to have consideration for?
American Rescue Plan is the largest grant that's gonna be coming off.
Right. We did move some positions earlier last year. There's some positions that are clearly planned to not continue. And then at the budget committee meetings and then the board meetings, we'll be talking about some of the other positions.
So can
And we
we-
do have a return on investments revision, form revision that we'll be sharing with, actually it's based on input received from the committee that will then share out as well.
I feel like I don't necessarily have a great grasp of what's in every single grant. So, I mean, is that something that you can provide to us, just to have an awareness? I know that you're saying that there are things that we already know that we're not continuing and things that we want to try and focus and push somewhere else, but, listen, it's hard to keep track of all of the things and where they are and who's being funded by what.
That's definitely something we can share. And just so, for example, the career education coordinator and the high school social worker, those were positions already moved into the budget. When we did the AIS, the additional position for, that was planned for 3 years to close gaps, and there could always be discussion, but that was clearly communicated. And then some of the other positions, some of the principals have discussed potentially bringing forward an ROI. So that's part of the process, but we can separate all of our positions out, the different grants, including our Title I grants, and those are ongoing, but and vary a bit. That's something that we can easily do because they're all listed in our FS10s for the grants.
Right. I mean, I think the priority would be the grants that are going to be expiring that are not, it's every year. It's just something that.
It's the one grant, but that one American Rescue Plan definitely covered a lot of areas. Again, and we've been phasing as well.
So I think some really smart planning and prep work in deciding how we were going to utilize that grant initially has put us in a position where we are not going to be hitting a wall, right, and having to.
No, I know, but we've changed and we've amended and done this and that, and I just can't keep track of it.
No, listing of, where we are at now, it's great. But I just think that you all did a great job being thoughtful about where to put the money and how to start shifting it so we wouldn't be in a place where we saw shock and awe budget season.
I'd also like to bring up, I know we did not receive the COPS grant, but I'd like to bring up where we are with an SRO and where that would fit into a budget, because I think it's important to have continue this discussion.
Security.
School resource officer.
Yeah, in addition to the safety officers.
Yeah, so again, that would be us filling out a return on investment, talking about the data, bringing it through the budget committee and bringing it to the board. So we'll carry it through that process. And we did not receive the grant, but we will be applying again on behalf of the city. And I know that could offset if that was received, because there's priority status given if you've already applied once and have not received it. So we'll talk about that too as part of the process.
I mean, even if we did receive it, it would still be portion needed because it doesn't.
Correct. So we would talk about full portion, grant portion.
Yeah, I think it's a conversation we've been having for a long, long time, and, I think it's something we should keep our eye on.
So shall we add safety, school safety? As
I would like to, yeah.
Board budget priority?
So just so
you worked in like the safety officer, and I think specifically.
So just so you know, and I'm going to, after Stacy's done, I am going to talk a bit about that. In our minds, it is already added as the line item when you talk about the multi-tiered supports, both in terms of school supports and safety, because we talked about that, and we will definitely separate it out. But that was the direction and the discussion back in the beginning of the year. So that's how we're lumping that to as, supports to students and safety. Yes.
This is the next thing I'm going to talk about.
Thank you, Vanna.
So we already talked about A and B, and Peggy touched on there's going to be a new format for the return on investment analysis. So that'll be presented.
Seen it, you have it.
Right, yeah, it's going to be a surprise for me, but I know it's coming. So there will be a new format, and so that'll be shared out once that's developed. So I'm not going to rehash A and B because we've already talked about that. So for 'tis the season, January 8th through the 18th, we'll be meeting with our building leadership teams at the elementary levels. And at the secondary levels, we'll be meeting with our teacher leaders and of course our building administrators to go over their needs assessments and to discuss their needs for the upcoming budget season. And the budget committee meetings are scheduled for January 23rd and January 25th. As far as board presentations, our first presentation would be February 14th. And we'll talk about preliminary revenues, which would include a walkthrough of the tax cap calculation, which everybody loves, it's their favorite, and the executive run. And February 28th would be the final walkthrough of the tax cap because that's due on March 1st to OSC. And we would have our elementary buildings presentations. On March 13th, it would be our secondary buildings as well as athletics and clubs. On March 27th, it would be our district-wide services, which would include buildings and grounds, IT, central office, and special programs. April 10th would be deliberations. We do have Assemblymember McDonald, and he's already booked. He'll be here the last meeting in January, right? January 31st. So he'll give us an outlook of the state of the state, so that's very timely. As far as line item budgets, the preliminary line item budget will be to the full board. We're shooting for February 16th. And the budget adoption for the board would be April 24th. The public vote is on May 21st. So the hearing needs to be 7 to 14 days before the vote. So I have May 8th as the hearing date.
Got it.
Questions?
Comments?
Anybody want to join the budget meeting? Last call. I think the meetings are only 11 hours each. Sorry.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Stacy. While Stacy's still, just in case I need some help, there was a question our last meeting, I think, about bleachers and additional seating. So we did get the information from CSR, and we'll send the details home along with the drawing. But the proposal has now been revised to 700 seats total at the home side. Nothing at the visitors, I don't mean visitor side by the building. There was in the plan, the seats way across. And under advisement of Jeff, those are not needed. It's also a safety, security.
For the neighbors with.
So the difference is 36,000, and I'll send that home, and then you can also ask CSR. So I did want to briefly discuss student behavior tonight and then go more in depth at our next meeting. So first of all, we're happy to have the safety officer on tonight's agenda for the middle school. The middle school has had one safety officer 2 days a week. They've had an open position since November 20th. We filled it to the best we can. We're happy that this safety officer will be starting on the 19th. He is a retired police officer as well. So that we're thankful for that. The tutoring center instructor for the secondary, that posting closes tomorrow. And then we anticipate beginning this after the holiday break. We talk about student behavior and solutions at our administrative meetings with both elementary, secondary principal. We're having an in-depth meeting focused solely on behavior, student behavior, and some solutions, some ideas on January 3rd at the secondary level. So that will also help us prepare programmatically for the budget discussions, so that before these assessments and before the budget committee meetings, you know, we have talked as a group, and we've, Laura's, your terminology escapes me, but it's like future possibility planning, and then we'll be able to bring that. And I've reached out to the elementary principals to discuss, you know, having something similar at the elementary level. Read your email and you know I am saying. So, and I did want to also talk about Cohoes Police Department. So as you know, they are on hand. They're great collaborators. We had a meeting with them. We have regular meetings. I know Laura meets regularly. Whenever we need to pick up the phone, they're there. But we had a meeting at the beginning of the year. We're having a meeting on January 4th with the chief, the assistant chief, secondary principals, and getting input from elementary to really talk about some commonalities we share both within the school day and after school. So that's planned, and we'll fill you in. Also, our behavior at games, I wanted to talk a little bit about that. And thank you. We do have the Cohoes Police Department who will now be coming to our games. Jeff and Laura have worked on revised expectations based on some behaviors. They're clearly shown and they're stated at the beginning of the meetings. Reminders are going out to elementary and middle school parents that their children must be accompanied. Laura got really creative with her use of furniture to block off certain areas, right? The interior design worked for that as well. And Jeff is also going to be talking at his ED meeting, because it's not something just in our district. It is happening elsewhere, brainstorming with athletic department directors and other departments. So I did just want to mention that, and then more to follow in January.
I think the hard part, you know, it does get discouraging, especially like the sporting events. They're very well attended by, you know, community and people who want to come. It's just like, it's fine that there is an expectation that if a middle or elementary school child comes in with their parent, then they're there with someone, but then what happens to them once they're in the door? You know, like, there's no expectation for the parent to say, your child needs to be with you. And so it's not that they're not being, you know, chaperoned. It's that once they get inside, it's just a free for all of sit wherever you're going to sit. You're not necessarily with the person who's meant to be chaperoning you or looking over you. I mean, do we still have a student section? I mean, that's just for the high school, right? That it would be expected just for high school students?
So this is going to be part of the, you know, continued discussion with Jeff and Laura. I know they had.
I know, but we don't have another meeting until June 10th, and there's a lot of games going on.
January 10th. Yeah, but we're having this, a few things. One of the new expectations it's clearly listed. It was an expectation, but it's clearly listed, stay in your designated area. And that's why different areas have now been blocked off. So it's all in the gym. And I know that Laura and Jeff have had some discussions around seating as well. And I will make sure that we share that with you in an update too, like before the January. Just wanted to.
Yeah, I mean, if it means additional chaperones for student sections, I mean, it's not that we want to discourage people from coming, but, you know, for someone who's coming to the game, might not actually have a child there, but wants to support, you know, doesn't have to listen to, you know, the cursing and swearing that's happening behind them because, you know, there's a child in middle school who's being unattended and just doing whatever they want to do. So, I mean, it's not a blame situation. It's just a matter of like, what do we need to do to help support the success of our programs, because we want our community members to come in, we want our parents to come in, but we need to make it a comfortable situation for folks to not feel like, upset or, anxious or in any way uncomfortable.
I totally agree. We have increased our chaperones, including safety officers at all events, following through with disciplinary actions when needed based on that, and also making sure in cases that there are, so some of the incidents have been that the student might have been with another adult but not a parent or guardian, clearly saying now it has to be a parent or guardian, and then continuing to look at seating. So I know that Jeff and Laura have had a couple meetings, and we'll continue, and I'll put it in an outline for the update as well, some more specifics.
I mean, it's hard, right? Like, because do you want kids to come that have a parent and guardian that are working, that might be able to come with a friend, but who are behaving and are doing the right thing? It's hard. Like, is the answer to put like such strict limitations? I don't know what the answer is, but at this point, it just.
So right now, the expectations for parent guardian are elementary and middle school. And, in terms of, if somebody's coming in with a grandmother or an adult family member, consideration will be given versus older siblings. So we're working through that as well.
What about the kids, the mother who shows up with her child and like 3 other kids? Because
Yes.
is that considered?
So just so I wanted to bring this up to let you know that it's something that we're having discussions on. Laura and Jeff are working through the details of each one, and we can put some bullet points in terms of those different things and share out.
I think there's nothing better than the PAC student section, and that is the last thing we want to,
discourage from them participating.
So, I think, there's obviously rules and regulations that need to be followed, but, being at many, many games,
yeah,
it's great when those stands are packed. Yeah. On the flip side, we certainly have some kids who are taking advantage of the situation, so.
And then address that on a circumstance basis for those particular students.
Well, there's a code of conduct for our athletes. There should be a code of conduct for.
Oh, there is, and when the incidents do happen, the code of conduct is enforced, but that's after the incidents happen, correct? So we're also trying to come up with some proactive ways to deter those incidents from happening in advance. But the code of conduct is followed after the incident.
Well, when you put it on a stage and you let them do it on a stage, I guess when they do it in the stands, it's the same thing with swearing. It is sarcasm, but I'm sorry.
So I just wanted to briefly touch upon that tonight to let you know that it was an area that, we have been working on, and further work to follow, and we'll share, and happy to have our police partnering at the meetings.
Do they have a new police liaison for the schools yet? Have they? Because I know that it was John Shanahan that had retired. Have they established one yet, or is that still in the works?
I think there's 2. I think they said Joseph.
So I'm not certain. I know that our police, they are training at our buildings on February 6th, and I'm not sure. I think they have, Laura, do you know if there's a certain liaison or not?
Direct liaison, I know there's, your day people who
Right.
I thought that the police department might have announced that there was 2 community leaders, Joseph and another.
Oh. On days now.
Okay. Where was it announced?
So that'll be part of the meeting on January 3rd too, with, or 4th, that's the 4th with Chief.
And it might be community, not just school.
So.
I can certainly ask that question too, by the way.
Yeah.
Well, I just know that at the safety meeting that we had with the chief, they continually said there's nobody really that we have that for the liaison for you guys for the schools with John Shanahan. Like, it was a big loss for him to retire, for the schools to have their direct liaison. And I know they had said they were working on it, and I just didn't know if there was any update on it.
I'll find out, but they are also, part of that discussion was the training at the staff meetings, and those have been scheduled for February, so that has.
Oh, good, okay, perfect.
Good. Anything else on that?
That's it, other than upcoming events, winter concert, and the holiday concerts, and then holiday recess. So the next time we're in the room together, it'll be 2024. Which you'll hear from me in 2023, I promise.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Any board discussion on agenda items?
One quick question, Peggy. Like with St. Rose closing, how badly is that going to affect us? Just as I see, some of our student teachers once again coming from there.
Yeah.
How does that hurt us?
So it will be a loss. We have a working relationship. I was asked to provide a letter of support to the University at Albany, which I wrote yesterday, because they are requesting permission to develop, and wrote them down, adolescent education, bachelor's of science, early childhood, childhood education, childhood and special education. So that will be very helpful. I also asked Laura and our counselors how many current students we have. We have one who's a senior. So right now, we have at least 4 who will be impacted, 3 freshmen and one junior. There might be more. I know that there's also others who are impacted who were planning on applying. So it would be a loss. We have been trying to establish student-teacher connections, which then is a pipeline, right, with other schools as well. We had Clarkson come to us yesterday. We're going to start talking with Sage Colleges. Again, we had a strong partnership with Sage pre-pandemic when they did tutoring at Harmony Hill. And there's also something that called an apprenticeship program that the state is doing that we're also looking into. So I'll keep you updated.
Thank you. Any other? Community discussion of agenda items? And can we get a motion that the Board of Education adopts the following resolutions of the December 13th, 2023 agenda, items 6A through J, 7A through T, and 9A?
I'll make a motion.
Second, thank you.
Mrs. Giller.
Yes.
Mr. Jackson.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes.
Mrs. Gendron.
Yes.
Paradis.
Yes.
Mr. Gerose.
Yes.
Mrs. Carey.
Yes. So the next section, comments from the board on anything that's not on the agenda.
I just wanted to give a shout out to Rebecca LaForest. I know she gets a lot of recognition, but we personally had the opportunity for her to set up an internship type thing for my daughter at April Lansing's, and it exceeded my expectations. I expected her to go maybe once or twice in shadow, and she really developed a 30 visit plan and broke it down in increments to the point where at the end of it, she's going to actually develop and teach a lesson plan to these kindergartners, which is great. I think it was awesome. So, and so far she still wants to be a teacher.
Oh, it's even better. That's great. Thank you very much for that. Anyone else? So I would just like to say that the board received a letter jointly authored by the CTA and the CSEA members that talked about their concerns with the SIM conversion, which we've had multiple presentations on. We know that it's a heavy lift. We know that there have been significant bumps. And one of the things they asked for was to sit down, which we did. Peggy and I sat down with Scott and Michelle Perry from CSEA, and we took It took a couple of hours and we sort of went through everything that was in the letter. And I think it was a good, productive conversation about what the needs were, what the, ideal outcome was, what an acceptable outcome was, possible paths forward. So I'd like to ask Peggy, on behalf of all of us, to take a deeper dive and to prepare a thorough report for January, so we can all see exactly where we are, which modules are active compared to in the beginning, how it sort of, not so much how we got here, but what to do to move forward so that everyone can benefit, however they need to benefit. Is everyone on board with that?
And we'll have follow-up from,
Total follow-up, that would be interactive and discussion, and there's just not enough information right now. I mean, you have to pull, I think the vendor needs to be queried. There's so many moving parts that I think it's gonna take time to assemble enough information to have a good quality discussion that will result in some positive outcome.
Right, student focus groups just occurred. There are vendor meetings. Synergy president had agreed to meet, and then we'll be able to bring all of that together on January 10th and have the discussion.
and follow-up from their side too. I mean, not sides or whatever, but I just mean like the accomplishments, their perspective on what's been happening too.
I don't think Mr. Charlton likes to speak up much. I'm not.
No, I know.
So that we can get to you guys as well. So what is the path forward and to be what needed for us to do?
Good.
Well, I completely agree that the parent voice is not nearly as important as staff and teachers.
Very important.
I can tell you, I have a whole lot of thoughts and opinions just from my perspective as a parent across both elementary and middle school kids. I never have felt like I've struggled more than this year to know what the heck is going on in my kids' classes. As we do more and more online, I lose lessons, I continue to lose visibility into what they're working on, what's coming next. I can't flip ahead in the book and sort of guide them and keep them ahead. I have to react after they get back graded assignments.
So you're losing the ability to be proactive.
Correct.
So maybe a parent focus group too is part of that. Would you like to be on that committee?
I never am shy about offering my opinion.
As long as it's not between January 8th and 18th.
Okay.
Nominated and accepted.
Questions and statements from the audience about anything that's not on the agenda? Is there?
Just to your question about student teachers, Mr. Jackson, we have traditionally had a robust relationship with St. Rose in terms of having school psychologists, practicum students and interns, which really help us a lot, doing lots of things with kids. We met with this year's practicum students who turn into next year's interns today. And the program is pretty confident that their interns are being received by either union or SUNY Albany, or they're still there, is that they're really hoping that CML will take over their whole program of school psychology. So we'll still have our interns for next year, and we have already started reaching out to see and to about potential relationship.
Thank you. Yes, and
I'm Elaine Plato. I'm a social worker at the middle school. The associate had asked Rachel and myself to comment a little bit about our holiday hope program. which I mentioned the money that was raised for that at the last board meeting, or whatever that was, last month, I think. So I wanted to let you know, we did have our Holiday Hope Store. It's a program in conjunction with Bridges Out of Poverty, and local faith-based organizations, and the library. We held it at the library. No, we held it at the library and senior center. And we had over 40 families that we were able to get gifts for, about 100 students, and over 300 gifts were given away. We also had lots of lovely donations of hand-knitted scarves and gloves and hats, which were just really cute, free, those were free. So I do want to once again thank the school district staff for the money that was raised during the election day silent auction. The Sons of the American Legion, half of them, I believe, of their donation. And also want to recognize that Brittany Moore was able to sign up families for holiday food baskets at the Holiday Hope Store, which is a project in conjunction with the Cohoes Waterford Elves. So we were cooking. We had great. And actually the best part for me is the comments from the parents and how just, moving and appreciative families were, and what, I mean, that's just, it gives you such, in Yiddish, the term is nakas, that good feeling of just contributing and being part of something that's just so great. So it was tremendous. So, and I do want to just recognize all our social worker colleagues, because they did a lot. And like Angela at the high school, most of the kids who we shopped for, or whose families shopped, for mostly middle school and elementary kids. And I know she independently sought out high school kids who don't typically show up or reach out for that kind of help. So we were able to make sure that we took care of them as well. It's great.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Always, you take a deep dive and you do an amazing job, and your colleagues do an amazing job. And I really think, when the city decided Cohoes was a community that cares, I think they looked here first, and you all model it. So thank you for that. Anything else? Policy committee met, and this will be the first read for all of these policies. They have been sent. News and notes. Awesome.
We're in the upload.
Yes, ma'am. I'm just checking. Thank you.
I'm checking.
Thank you. So next time they'll be on for a second read and an adoption, unless someone has a change, a comment. No. Before we do dates for future meetings, I just want to congratulate Ms. O'Shea on your contract extension.
Well, to be 3 more years. After this year.
All right, dates for meeting January 10th and January 31st. And I'm happy to announce there is an executive session. So can I get a motion to adjourn the meeting, please?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.
Thank you.
40. Mrs. Giller?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder?
Yes.
Mrs. Gendron?
Yes.
Paredes?
Yes.
Mr. Rose?
Yes.
Carrie?
Yes. Sure. Happy holidays.
Thank you. Happy holidays.
See you next year.
Yes.